What's going on, good people? It's your man JB with you once again. It's another edition of the Mind Your Business podcast. And just want to say thank you guys for tuning in and checking out the show. Also, I want to make sure you guys look. I would appreciate it if you subscribed, do the whole notifications thing so that way you know when we're live and we have the guests on. Because I don't want you guys to miss anything. We give some really good content. I have some great guests on. And I just don't want you guys to miss out. I want you guys to know and hear and be able to see everything that we're talking about so that way you don't miss anything. Before we go any further, I've got to do this. We're located in Virginia, currently broadcast from the Williamsburg area. Have a lot of relationships outside of Williamsburg, Hampton, Newport News, Norfolk, Virginia Beach. And first and foremost, I want to say our prayers go out to the victims from today. There was a school shooting at one of the high schools. And so just our prayers are out. And listen, man, we've got our community, man. We really got to do something. We've got to figure this thing out and fix this. We've got to show our kids a better way to deal with conflict. And I don't know the whole scenario. I don't know the situation. But at the end of the day, we have to, as adults, as the village, we've got to do some things to where we can help these kids and how to resolve and deal with conflict. From what I'm heard, it was a situation. But even with that, we've got to figure that piece out. And we've got to be more consistent. We've got to be in not our own kids' lives, but anyway, but prayers go out in Heritage High School to the ones that were involved from every single piece. The person that pulled the trigger, the ones that were affected, all of the kids that were impacted because it impacted the entire school and community. So I'm going to put that out there. Today, we've got my man, Adam Coleman. He's hanging out with us today on the Mind Your Business podcast. And once again, it's powered by Hanging with the Harrisons. But right now, let's get my man on. We're going to have him come up and just kind of talk about who he is, what he does, and that whole deal. Adam, what's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, man? Good to be here, my brother.
Yes, sir. We've been talking for a minute about getting you up
Yes,
here.
sir.
So we finally were able to make it happen, and I was able to catch you off of your world tour. And
Nah, man.
you,
Now, I'm still trying to catch up with the moves you was making back in the whole Shama days, man. We gotta talk about that, man.
man, listen.
I'm a decade behind you, brother.
Man, listen. We were reminiscing
Uh,
not too long ago. Just matter of fact, my wife and I this morning we had a conversation just about all of the things that I've done. I've had my hand in.
right.
From just all the things that I've had my hand in, and
Mhm.
everything that wasn't always successful. Some stuff I did because I had the desire and the passion to do it, and I'm not gonna sit here and say I did it correctly.
Yeah.
Some stuff I won at, some stuff I lost at. But I think at the end of the day, you've got to be willing to try.
Yeah.
And
That's
I think,
absolutely true.
and I think that's what it boils down to. If you're willing to try, because the thing about it, man, you never know what you may be good at if you don't try. It's a lot of things that you might be great at, but because you're afraid to try and get out there and do it, you'll never know.
I mean, that's so true, man. And I don't know if I'm getting ahead of us, but I think that in my own experience, in terms of where I am now,
Mm.
I don't know if I could be doing what I'm doing now had I not had that certain experiences doing rap, what I'm saying, Christian rap
Yeah,
particularly. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? I don't know if I could be that because I think most people, even in like a business sense, I mean, most people don't flourish like with their first business. I'm saying usually there's
hmm
like some sort of trial and error
right.
until you get it right. And I think for me, like I felt like I was a really good rapper. I mean, I'm not saying I'm like the GOAT, but I felt like at the time, I felt like I had some bars, you know what I mean?
Oh, you had some
But
bars.
yeah, man, I had some bars. I'm not saying I'm, a Jay-Z or nothing, you know what I mean? But, I can give you a 16 every now and again, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And,
yeah, yeah.
but as much as I enjoyed it, I love being on stage. I still feel like that was like my preliminary venture, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm,
saying? And I
mm-hmm,
didn't really hit my stride until I kind of transitioned to what I'm doing now. But there's some valuable lessons from then though. And I think that,
yeah.
it all works together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let's talk, man.
Yeah.
You are, outside of being an author, you are what they call a Christian apologist, correct?
Right.
Or
Right. Correct.
Christian,
Correct. Yeah.
urban Christian apologist.
Right. Yep. Urban apologetics. Yep.
Bruh, what is that, man?
I can't tell you how many times, man. I get that joke like, "What are you apologizing for?"
Yeah,
Right.
what is?
So Christian apologetics. I mean, first of all, you can be an apologist for anything. It just really means to give a defense for something, or to be like an advocate for something, if you will.
Got it.
So in the sports world, somebody might be a LeBron James apologist. The cats who say he's the GOAT. You might have like a Jordan apologist. Pretty much just defending a position.
Got it.
So when it comes to Christianity. We're talking about Christian apologetics. It's really just that field of study that has to do with giving a defense for the biblical worldview. We're saying that it's not that we're Christians just because it feels good or just because my grandmama said so, but there are rational grounds. There's evidence for the biblical worldview for Christianity, and that's what we're putting before people to consider. You know what I'm saying? So, it goes to there's a scripture actually, 1 Peter 3:15, where it talks about being always ready to give a defense. And the word defense there, if you look in the Greek, is the word apologia, which is where we get apologetics. And so essentially it's just, being ready, man, to give a defense for what it is that we believe to be true. Because you can't say just, the Bible said nowadays. You can't just say, well, my pastor said nowadays. You got to show and prove. You got to stand in your square. So that's what it is, man.
Because these cats now, they're studying. And I've seen some of the videos. I've seen some of your videos. I've seen how they talk about your mama. They talk about the God you serve.
Oh, man.
They talk about your family. They call Jesus. He's a white man. He was slave master. Right. Christianity, and that whole situation. So before we even get into how you defend that, because listen, bro, because you go in. But before
I try, man.
You listen. You do hands down. But even before that, how did you find yourself even getting into that space? Like, how did you even get there?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there was a lot of different influences, but I mean, to be honest, I don't know if I ever shared this, to be honest with you, but I got a cousin who back in the day got into rapping. Like, this is like during the Wu-Tang era and stuff like that. So he got into rapping, and he was like an older brother to me. And so when he started rapping, I got into rapping, and again, it was kind of like that Wu-Tang era. And at that time, I mean, at least here in VA, we were spitting a bunch of stuff. We didn't know what Wu-Tang was talking about. But then when I got older, I realized that, okay, there's an actual worldview and religion behind a lot of what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And so, whereas myself, I still kept it more so about the music. My cousin got into more of the worldview, spirituality side of it. And that kind of opened my eyes like, Dad, you know what? There's people out here who really have some real beef with Christianity. And they got their reasons why. And either I'm going to kind of just turn a blind eye to it, or really challenge myself to learn more about why it is I believe what I believe. You know what I'm saying? Because he was taking a different perspective. We both grew up in church. You know what I'm saying? But here he was going a different direction. So that, among other things, that really caused me to start investigating why it is that I believe what I believe. And then, of course, you know what it is, man. Like, you scrolling through your news feed on Facebook and you see that meme, with the Kunta Kinte picture where, this is how blacks became Christians and that kind of stuff. And, white Jesus, da, 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 da. And just coming across things like that, it's like, I'm a naturally inquisitive person. Like, it's not acceptable for me to say, okay, well, I just believe it just cause. I'm not like that with anything. And so I felt like when I'm being confronted with these objections to Christianity, I had to search it out just for myself. And as I began to come across answers, to these objections to Christianity, Christianity was, taken from Horus, or it's the white man's religion, is this, is that. As I was digging into the history, as I was digging into philosophy and science and just these different fields of study, and coming up with, or finding myself with this evidence that refuted the stuff that they were saying, I'm like, man, I just can't keep this to myself. I think I should share it. And so I started a podcast, and to be honest with you, sometimes I kind of feel like I don't know how I ended up where I am now, but it really all started, with that podcast, just trying to just get people, what I was coming across, man. As I was studying, I just wanted to put it out there because I felt like if I have these questions, somebody else does too. So, why not share it? Yeah.
Well, what I find interesting, man, and I've ran into this with a lot of guys that I've come up with. Some that I worked with behind the scenes, whether it's musically or just in life in general.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how for you it went one way, for others it can go totally different.
Right.
So
Right.
I know dudes that started researching
Mm-hmm.
some of these other faiths and religions and worldviews, and it caused them to drift further and further and further away
Yeah.
from, when I say the faith, we'll just say Christianity.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and you may not even have the answer to this, I don't know. How is it for you? It kind of caused you to draw closer, but
Mm.
then for others, it kind of pushed them away.
You know what, man? That's a really good question, and it's something that I still kind of grapple with myself. I'm not sure if I can give 100% answer in terms of what it is. I can only look at my own experience and
Mhm.
say, for me, like me individually, I think that there was like seeds sown when I was a kid. Like,
Mhm.
so my parents, whereas, obviously, I grew up in church and, we was in the church house on Sunday, but nevertheless, our black heritage was always important to them. You know what I'm saying? So like during summer school, I mean, during the summer, like we wasn't just sitting around like chilling or whatever. Like my parents would have us write book reports on various African American figures and stuff like that. I mean, independent of what we was doing for school,
Mhm.
my parents were like, no, you're going to learn this history. And so that was just like a big part of, my upbringing, this idea that while it is the case that Christianity is important, like there are these other aspects of life that you need to be knowledgeable about as well. You know what I'm saying? And then on top of that, I went to a church, shout out to Full Gospel AME Zion. When I was a kid, my church was really Afrocentric, right? So it wasn't nothing for me to go to church and see whether it be the pastor or somebody else, rocking the dashiki or something along those
Mhm.
lines.
Mhm.
So when I got older and I started encountering this stuff, like we're talking about here, the idea that of pursuing and honoring my heritage, like that wasn't going to steer me away from Christianity because the way I grew up, it was always a part of
Mhm.
who I was, even as a Christian. You see what I'm saying? So, in some ways, I kind of feel like I had an advantage, in that regard, because being black was always important in my household. You know
Right,
what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
But and being a Christian was always important in my household. So I
Mhm.
never saw like this conflict that other people saw. And the more and more I studied it, I kept seeing that no, they really are compatible. They fit snugly together. So yeah, I guess that's just my, as far as my personal experience, I think that's probably why I didn't really drift away as opposed to drifting toward Christ. Really, yeah.
Yeah, because and it's interesting, man. Like I run into cats today, and you see just where they are based on where they were.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm sure we've been in some of the same circles, and
yeah,
so we
yeah.
have it. I mean, it is what it is, man.
It
But
is what it is, man. Yeah.
it's just that piece is real interesting, man. So
Mm.
so the whole Christian apologetics.
Yeah.
So you basically will think of it like for those that may have trying to figure out how it works. It's almost like 8 Mile,
Right. Yeah, it is.
right?
Yeah.
It's almost like an eight
Yeah.
mile, but it's an 8 Mile the movie Eminem. So it's
Right, right.
almost like 8 Mile, but it's more so instead of you defending yourself and how nice you may be and as an
Right, right.
MC, blah blah blah, you're defending what Jesus stood for,
Yeah. Facts.
the religion, the belief, the faith, the whole nine against those that may be totally opposed to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And how do you keep a cool head When these
I,
cats start with the low blows and because it gets ugly, man. It gets ugly
it gets, yeah,
on
yeah,
that side because to be honest with you, you are dealing with cats that hate almost to the point. They hate
right,
the name Jesus,
yeah,
hate what he stands for, and almost hates any black person that ascribes, subscribes, or whatever to
right,
that belief system.
right.
And how do you keep a cool head, man? Like how do you?
You know, actually, it's funny. It kind of slipped out the other day. I didn't mean for it to come out this way. I was on my on a live stream about a week or so, well, about 2 weeks ago, and the same question came up. And I mean, I was being halfway funny, but I mean, I work in the mental health field, so
Mm-hmm.
like I'm used to getting cussed out. I mean, I can get, you know, it's nothing for me to pick up my phone and get cussed out by, you know, one of my guys that's on my caseload. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just day in and day out, I'm accustomed to it. You know what I mean? So disrespect and things like that. I mean, I have my limits. You know what I'm saying? I definitely have my
Right,
limits.
right.
But for me, like once, like in a debate or some sort of dialogue, like once you go there, I know I got you. I already know, I know I'm in your head. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so at that point, I'm just gonna let you hang yourself and just unravel. Man, I had, and I don't normally say this live, but I would just go ahead and share it. So I used to do jujitsu back in the day, right? And I'm not saying I was like Horace Gracie or something like that, but you know, I was trying to be nice with it. I was really
Mm-hmm.
trying to do it, you know. And so I had a coach, and he was like, you know, he was saying, man, you know, you're doing really well. You're very patient, and he was explaining to me how when people first start, normally they just want to get in the ring and, you know, choke somebody out, break an arm, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just, you know, get in there and murder somebody. But he was saying that the experienced guys, what they'll do is they'll get in there in the ring and they'll just hold your gi for a while, and they'll just hold it, and you don't know what they're doing, but really they're weakening that bicep. They just weaken it, and they might just hold it for like 2 or 3 minutes. But then what happens is after about 2 or 3 minutes, then they'll go in for the break because they've already weakened that arm. You can't defend against it, and that always stuck with me. You know what I'm saying? And so I really do try to apply the same strategy when I'm in a debate. I'm saying once I find like where your weak point is, once I find the weak part of their argument, I'm just gonna stay right there, and I'm gonna apply pressure to it, and one of the two things is going to happen. Either you're going to respond to the objection I'm giving you, or you're going to unravel. And so either way, I'm just going to stay calm and be chill until you pretty much, you know, fall apart. It's just a strategy. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, I think that and then, to be honest with you, sometimes it's entertaining, man. I don't take this stuff serious. Like it's not like most of the stuff is online for most people. You know what I mean? I do have interactions where I'm face to face. You know what I'm saying? But it's very rare when you have somebody who's like really gonna take it there, you know, on some physical stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, man, you can say what you want, man. It's entertainment. It's entertainment to me.
So now spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, man, you're dealing with even though you're dealing with the physical,
Yeah.
when you start talking about the faith and the belief system, now and the way that some of these cats believe, there's spirits that are involved.
Facts.
And
Yeah.
so, and you said that it's never gotten physical,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But listen, once again, we've seen some rap battles
Mm-hmm.
where cats done got mad because my man is just killing them right now with the bars,
Right. Right. Right.
and
Right.
that's just we're talking about ego.
Yeah. Yeah.
In situations like this, man, we talking spirits. Uh,
Yeah.
we might be talking about like demons and that whole nine, man. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
how and like you said, it's never gotten physical, and thanks to your jujitsu training, just in
Right. Right.
case,
Right.
you had to go
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready to
yes
go.
sir,
You
yeah
know. Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got to go ninja mode or whatever.
Right.
um
Right.
but it's just how do you navigate in those circles? When do you know what, let me pull back. My man is getting a little tight. He's I
Yeah.
see right now he's really on edge. He's getting real tight. Let me not go for this knockout blow right now because he's I see where he is right now.
Man, that's a great question, man. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. That's a really good. That's very perceptive. So, as part of the chess match and these dialogues and debates, it is this aspect where you are weighing out. when to pull back. That's definitely an aspect of it, especially if it's in person. Like I said, most of the time it's online, and for most people, they engage in stuff is online. But for me, I mean, I was in San Diego, a couple months ago, dealing with some Hebrew Israelites face to face and stuff. I do that from time to time, and my criteria for when to pull back in person is different than if I'm just doing something, online. Because I feel like if it does come to some sort of physical altercation, everybody loses.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. There really is. I mean, not trying to be spooky or scare nobody, but there really is a spiritual aspect to what we do. And if I'm being fully honest, like when I first started doing this, it was just me, a microphone, and a laptop, putting out podcast episodes. And so I kind of just looked at it as, giving out information. But as I started engaging people directly, that spiritual conflict became like more apparent. And I really had to start devoting more time in terms of in my prayer life and making sure that I'm spiritually prepared before I engage in these conflicts. So real rap, like if I know that I've got like some sort of dialogue or debate or something like that coming up tomorrow or the day after, I really am spending time in prayer, making sure that I'm in a good space in that regard before I engage a person, because that aspect is real, whether people believe so or not. So the reality is, man, I have experienced, that aspect of conflict, quite a bit. And I think that the key is to remember who it is that I'm serving. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to come into any situation timid, because at the end of the day, I'm standing for God. But nevertheless, you're saying I also want to make sure that I'm humble enough to recognize that I'm not just out here swinging for the fences. I need to make sure that I'm in lockstep with what God is trying to do at all times. You know what I'm saying? It's not about me trying to beat somebody up intellectually. Because my thing is this, is that at the end of the day, if it's about me and just kind of getting that knockout blow, sometimes I can land that knockout blow and still lose the debate. I can still lose the dialogue because I didn't reason with the person, where I may have missed an opportunity to build a bridge. You see what I'm saying? And so sometimes if I'm trying to knock your teeth out and then I miss that opportunity to build a bridge, ultimately I lose. You know what I'm saying? And so it is a matter of taking that into account, man. But no, it's real, bro. It's real. I mean, I've had situations where I thought things were going to get amped up, but fortunately they didn't. And then God has been with me in that regard. But there is a constant, like, kind of give and take. You weighing out the situation to see where that person is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just, I wondered, like I said, we've seen some of the battles just freestyle. We see
Right.
dudes get, they swing in, they ready to fight. They in there with 30 dudes deep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, when you,
Well, I mean, now dig this though. I don't mean to cut you off.
no,
So to your point, right? Think about it this way, right? Let's say if you are, I'm not even going to say the person's name. Let's say you're the leader of a particular Hebrew Israelite group,
Mhm.
right?
now,
And
for those
yeah,
that don't know,
okay.
Hebrew Israelite, explain what exactly that is.
Got you. So let me first say that I recognize there's various different types of Hebrew Israelites. So I'm going to give a general definition, understanding that they're not all the same. But one thing that Hebrew Israelites as a group typically will hold in common is that they believe that they are ethnically and, if you will, nationally um, Israelites, as in the Israelites that you read about in the scriptures. They believe that they're literal descendants, ethnically, or you may even say genetically, from Abraham in that regard. And so typically they hold to that aspect of their belief. And then usually it's going to be followed with some sort of, keeping to the Mosaic law. And so, kind of, some sort of Hebraic system that goes along with that. But the linchpin of their whole belief system is that identity claim.
Yeah.
And, we can get into that further. But that being said, if I'm debating with them about some sort of doctrinal issue, now I might be dealing with somebody who they've literally given their life over to this thing. Like they're literally day in and day out. This is what they live. So if Adam Coleman comes along and is cutting your ideology down,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, Dad, like this is like your whole foundation. Like this is what your whole life is based around this thing, and I'm giving you reason to think that it's false. Like that is, it's kind of like, remember like playing Jenga. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm pulling like those little planks under, and that you starting to feel things get wobbly. That's very uncomfortable when it comes to your worldview. So you have that aspect, but then on top of that, to keep it real, you have some of these individuals who are making a lot of money. They might have, 30, 40, 1,000 followers, I'm saying locally, and they may have 20,000 followers on YouTube. I know people right now, I'm saying, who are living very well off of Patreon money and stuff like that. So when Adam Coleman shows up at your camp and is, chopping you up, then you're thinking about that bag. And so you got that bag, and you also have your worldview at stake. Of course you're going to get angry. Of course you're going to feel some kind of way. You know what I'm saying? Like these are real time, considerations that are going on in people's minds. So for me, I'm cognizant of that. You know what I'm saying? I'm always keeping that in mind. And so to be honest, sometimes I think I'm almost a little bit too nice. I try to give people an out sometimes. I'm always in bridge building mode whenever possible, because I realize that it's more at stake for them than for me. I'm not doing this full time. I wish I could, you know what I'm saying? But, for a lot of people, this is their livelihood. This is how they pay their bills, and so all that's coming into play.
Yeah, so it's not always just about ego, and it's not always about even what you believe spiritually, or what you're basing your belief system on. Sometimes, man, you messing with my money now, man.
A lot of times,
like you messing with my bread, and how that goes. When you start messing with, I don't care what their belief system is. At the end of the day, when you start messing with that green, then we got an issue.
Right. And here's the thing, I'm basing, everything I'm saying now is based upon real conversations with people who are in these positions. Like, this is stuff that I'm speaking from experience. I'm talking from a place of experience. Like these are people telling me this is my bag at stake. You know what I'm saying? And so I can't have you on here just saying this, that, and the third. Now, what's crazy is, to me, to be honest with you, it would be nothing for me to do this for free. I mean, honestly, the vast majority of the stuff I do, I don't get, I would do it for free. It's not a big deal. I was doing it for free. This is what I'm passionate about doing. You know what I'm saying? So in my mind, I'm coming into it from that perspective. And then you start running into people and you think that that's that way for them. But then you realize that, oh, no, actually, if you pull back the curtain, these guys are getting that bread. You know what I'm saying? And so it's far less about the information than what they put on a lot of times.
So when you go into these conversations, or I don't know what to call them, I don't want to say battles, but
sometimes a battle, dialogue, debate, it's a little, little bit of everything.
So when you get into one of these dialogues, what is your end goal? Is it, and just, is it to for them to become saved? Is it for them to kind of rethink their philosophy? Is it just to respect Christianity more? Like, ultimately, what is your goal?
You know what, man? I actually have a couple of different goals that I think are pretty consistent from dialogue to dialogue, right? So 9 times out of 10, if it's like a debate, like online or in person or whatever, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get somebody to just be like, yeah, you're right, you got me, I'm wrong about that. I mean, they're not going to do that. They're going to, there's a lot of pride. I mean, especially, to be honest, like, doing this in the African American context for the most part is very different than what you see in other cultures. Like, for us, it's like, it's like being at the barbershop. You're not going back down. Right. Even if you think you're wrong, you're still not going back down. Yeah, so I'm not really expecting, the person I'm debating with to be like, yeah, you got me. So if anything, for that individual or, group that I'm dealing with, I just kind of want to put a stone in their shoe. I'm saying, it's like, how you like walking with a pebble in the shoe, is kind of nagging you. That's what I want to do. I want you to walk away from that conversation, be like, dang, you know what? You like a week later, you're still thinking like, dang, that was a good point. You know what I'm saying? And then hopefully that'll provoke them to seek the truth further. So for that person, that's what I'm trying to do. Now, for me, I'm really concerned about the onlookers. I'm saying, for somebody who doesn't know Christ, I certainly want them to come to know the Lord. I really believe that, in the same sense that 2 + 2 = 4, Jesus is God, rose from the grave, and if you accept him, then you will dwell with him forever. I really believe that. I'm saying, and I've got evidence and, to demonstrate that, what I'm saying? And so I want people to affirm that. So I do want people to get saved. Nevertheless, the other side of it is, for those who are Christians, we have to be honest with ourselves. I mean, there are people, far too many people that I would like, who are leaving church under the mistaken belief that Christianity is either the white man's religion or the dumb man's religion. And so for me, for those people, I'm like, I want you to, before you walk out that door, I'm saying, let me give you something to think about. You know what I'm saying? And you make the decision you make. And then lastly, to be honest, I think there's a lot of Christians who believe in Jesus, and they may not have all the answers to the tough questions they're confronted with, but I want to instill confidence in them. I want them to know that there's nothing to be afraid of when it comes to these objections that people are bringing to the table. When I first started doing this, I felt nervous. I mean, because I was like, dang, I don't know what I'm going to find. Like, maybe I'm going to study something that really will disprove Christianity. I didn't know, but I ventured into it with that risk in mind. And here I am years later. I feel even like far more confident about the biblical worldview that I did previously. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like, jumping in, the water is fine kind of a thing. But I want people to see that. I want people to see, dang, this cat can go toe to toe with these dudes who we've been seeing bashing Christianity for years now, and he's not shook. He's giving them that work. And so therefore I don't have to be scared, when, things like this are presented to me. So it's kind of a combination of all those things, man. At the end of the day, I want to represent God well. And to be honest with you, beyond like all the debates and stuff, I just love people, man. You know what I'm saying? I feel like if if I really believe that what I'm saying is true, I feel like I would be a horrible person to not share it with somebody else. Like who would do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you really believe that God is real and that God really can fix broken situations, like and save us ultimately from sin and stuff like that, then why would you keep that to yourself? So at the end, it's all about love, man. It's all about love, man.
And yeah, and that's because ultimately there's always a goal. I mean, there's always a goal, and that's why, and especially for those, I'm sure you ran into people, and we're talking probably other Christians, that have said, "Hey, man, this whole you getting debating with these cats, blah blah blah. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be provoking these dudes to anger."
Right.
You know, this whole situation. How do you respond to that?
So if I'm dealing with a Christian, the first thing I want to do is like, well, if you don't like what I'm doing, then you would hate the Apostle Paul. you would hate that dude, because every time you see that man, he's confronting Peter face to face. I'm saying for essentially bigotry against Gentile believers. He's doing that in Galatians. In the book of Acts, chapter 17, he's confronting the philosophers, secular philosophers, and using their own poetry against them, and so on and so forth. All throughout the different letters, he's contending against what people are doing. Like, if you don't like what I'm doing, you wouldn't stand the Apostle Paul. And the reality is that I would just kind of commend that to him, but like, you know what? I think you just have a fundamentally mistaken understanding of what it means to, first of all, show love to other people, because love, should be truthful. I'm saying, it sounds, you don't have to be a jerk about it, but sharing the truth with people, that is love. And then at the same time, I'm pretty respectful. I mean, like, honestly, even in the most heated debates, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that I've debated or somebody who's been following me for a while that disagrees with that would say that Adam's a disrespectful dude. Like, I really can't think of anybody who would, in all integrity, say that. I try to carry myself with respect, regardless of what it is. And so I don't really give people a place to say those things. But then the other side of it is too, I think actually gets into another motivation that I hadn't really mentioned before, but I'm really concerned about the Black community. You know what I'm saying? I really care about how we're thriving and where we are as a community. And I say all the time, you can't build a strong community on a foundation of weak ideas. And so if you and we might be believers, and we can observe that, dang, our community is not doing what it should be doing or what it could be doing. And I'm like, hey, well, my thing is, you can't build a community with bad thinking. And so aside from the religious aspect, I'm trying to help us to think better. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that we can all agree on, and sometimes that's able to build a bridge. And then you're going to have some people who just be like, I don't care what you got to say. I'm not right with you. And that's okay. That's cool. But guess what? When when you got that cousin whose name is Charles, and he shows up at your next cookout, he's calling himself Shabazz, you're going to be watching TRU-ID trying to figure out how to respond. And I welcome you with open arms.
Oh, so man. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. So for those of you that are just tuning into the Mind Your Business podcast, we've got my man Adam Coleman on. He is what you call a urban apologist, Christian apologist, urban apologist.
Either or,
one of them. Right. And so we're having the conversation because, one, I'm sure a lot of you have no clue what a Christian apologist or an urban apologist is. But even with that, some of you may know, and one of the most prolific, I guess, apologists at one time was Ravi Zacharias, I would say.
Yeah, Ravi Zacharias. That's
You
right.
know,
Yeah,
now
yeah.
outside of the other things,
Right.
he was probably one of the most known.
Oh, without question. Yeah,
You know, and
yeah,
you know, we'll leave it at that. But he was,
yeah.
yeah, he
He,
was
he
one
was
of
out
the
there. Yeah,
he was one of the
he
big
was like
cats.
the Billy Graham of apologetics, man.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
yeah.
so once again, we have Adam Coleman on. He's on here with the Mind Your Business podcast, and we're just having a conversation. One about how he got into urban apologetics. He's been featured in some books. He has a network of very influential, yeah, and we'll talk about that as well.
Cool. Yeah.
He has been featured in a network of heavy hitters. Like this dude could name drop some people right now, and we would probably be like, yeah, but this is the circle that he's in.
Yeah, man.
This is the space that he's in. So when we talk about influencers, oh yeah, this is he's a true influencer.
Thank you, man.
So now
Appreciate
you
it.
have a podcast that's called TRU-ID.
Right, right.
And so that what exactly is the TRU-ID podcast?
Got you. So TRU-ID is it's an acronym. You know, it's TRU-ID. It stands for the real you, Imago Dei. And so Imago Dei is just Latin for saying image of God. So essentially, what I was looking at in our community is that there's this constant, I think we can call it an identity crisis. You know, you have people who are concerned about the reality that, you know, when we were forcibly brought over here to the Americas and to, you know, the Caribbean and so forth, we were ripped out of that context by which most people generally develop a sense of identity. You know, we had like this identity disruption. And then, you know, of course, with depression, you know, just essentially centuries of depression heaped on top of that. Ultimately, what you have is, I think, you know, a sweltering identity problem. You know, that's still there. And so, you know, many people are trying to cast off what they believe to be European and take on what they believe to be in line with their African, ethnicity or what have you. And they're making the decision that Christianity is on the wrong side of that ledger. And so they're trying to, you know, chuck Christianity with it. So what I'm saying is ultimately the foundation of who you are is that we're all made in the image of God. And I'm saying that Christianity is both ethnically compatible, but also rationally defensible. And so that's kind of like the theme behind everything I'm doing with the podcast. Started it back, I guess it's been about 6 years ago now. And that turned into me doing more so YouTube videos. And just a couple months ago, I relaunched the podcast. So I got, episodes dropping again on that. But I'm kind of splitting my energy between doing YouTube videos and we dialogue about the kind of stuff we've been talking about here, and dropping podcasts as well.
And because, you know, and just to kind of to fall back on what you said, so
Yeah.
I know that a lot of times when we as African American men talk about Christianity,
Yeah.
one of the first arguments that you hear if you're having a conversation with another black man who may not be a Christian is that's the white man's religion.
Yeah.
That was the religion that was used to kind of enslave us,
Yeah.
enslave our people. That was how the colonizers, you know, so that whole deal. And you and I had a conversation.
Yeah.
And you said some things, man, and talked and threw some names out there. And I was like, bruh, where in the world are you getting this information from? Like stuff that I had never heard of before in my life.
Right.
And so just with that, when it comes to, you know, the argument of Christianity is the white man's religion, it was used as an enslavement tool, and you know that whole thing.
Right.
Because I'm sure you hear that a lot in some of your debates.
All the time, man. Yeah. All the
So,
time.
and what is one of the main things that you use based off of factual information that
Yeah.
kind of debunks that theory.
Good, man. Yeah. So here's the thing about it, man. Like, there's a billion different directions we can go with it, to combat that claim. Usually, if I'm speaking, if I have a short amount of time, I just go straight to the history. Because one thing I say all the time is that most people unfortunately, are poor historians and even worse philosophers. I'm saying, like, most people, we're not doing our homework. But once you start, digging into the history, then it becomes clear, if you want to be intellectually honest anyway, that the notion that Christianity is white man's religion is clearly false. And so I say that for several reasons. First of all, I try to build a bridge and say, you know what, I agree with you that Christianity was used, I say misused, to subjugate our people. But I kind of liken it. I mean, obviously, we're both from Virginia. A couple of years ago, we had that situation in Charlottesville where you had the dudes with the tiki torches marching around, blah blah blah, and then unfortunately, a young woman was killed when a dude ran over her, and I think it was a Dodge Viper, I believe it was. Now, when that happened, nobody went out and protested against Dodge. And nobody said we need to stop, manufacturing Dodge Vipers. Why? Because it's obvious that the guy who murdered that lady used the Dodge Viper for a purpose for which it was not intended, right? So just because somebody misuses something, that's not a statement about the thing itself. It's actually more a statement about the person who misused it. And so when it comes to Christianity, even though it's kind of like that Dodge Viper, it's not the case that Christianity in and of itself is problematic for African people. Is that you have some really messed up people who claim to have been Christians misusing it. And we can get deeper into that. We talk about, for example, the slave Bible. I'm saying back during slavery times, they didn't even give, enslaved persons the full Bible. I'm saying they gave them a version of the Bible that had about 90% of the Old Testament redacted and about 50% of the New Testament redacted. They would take out all the different verses that had to do with, like the Exodus and, anything that had to do with liberty or personal value. They took all those things out and would just only provide the parts that they felt they could leverage to keep our people subdued. Now, if the Bible was so problematic, why would they feel the need to take out these large chunks of it? You know what I'm saying? Well, it's because they knew that if they gave the full version, then there were these elements of it that would promote essentially a sense of well-being. And actually, interestingly enough, I mean, one of my favorite movies is the that joint with I always mess the guy's name up, but it's the Nat Turner movie, A Birth of a Nation. There's a scene in there where he kind of talks about, like, for every verse that they use for slavery, there's one that's rebutting it, and it really was like that. For those who were able to access the broader version, they would see that, man, they've been giving us this like pseudo, Bible, if you will. Now, that being said, before we even get to slavery, the fact of the matter is there's about 2,000 years of Christianity on the continent of Africa, with about 1,400 of that coming before the transatlantic slave trade. So anytime somebody says that, oh, this is how Black people came to encounter Christianity, what you're telling me is you haven't done your homework, because you can't even get out of the first century before you see Christianity already organically getting into North Africa. I'm saying you can see it in the book of Acts, but I'll just, for the sake of argument, I'll leave the Bible out of it. We'll just talk straight history. I'm saying you can look at, Christianity flourishing in Egypt, in North Africa. I'm saying in Ethiopia, in Tunisia, going down into modern day Sudan. Matter of fact, what we refer to as the Sudan was actually called ancient Nubia, and Christianity got there at about 450 AD, and remained, and that it actually remained a Christian nation to about the 14th century. You know what I'm saying? So you have about a Christian nation on the continent of Africa for about 1,000 years, all that before the transatlantic slave trade. The first seminary, the first, institute of higher learning, if you will, for Christians was in Alexandria, Egypt. It was called the Alexandria Catechetical School. And out of that school, you have heavy hitters of the early church coming out of there. You know what I'm saying? Africans, straight up Africans. The Council of Nicaea that everybody wants to talk about was one of the major players at the Council of Nicaea. Well, you have Bishop Alexander and Bishop Athanasius. Both of those guys are from Alexandria, Egypt. You know what I'm saying? There's so many other names I could throw out, whether it be St. Augustine, who's considered to be the greatest thinker of church history. He was a North African. And not just a North African, he comes from the Berber tribe, which is an indigenous African people. We could talk about Bishop Cyprian. We could talk about Lactantius. We could talk about, Arnobius. We could talk, I could just, throw out name after name after name, Shenouda the Great. All these individuals who made major contributions to even the earliest centuries of Christianity. But even aside from all that, though, actually, in one of my more recent videos, I showed evidence that Christianity was indeed in West Africa, which is where most of our people were taken from. Christianity was in West Africa prior to the transatlantic slave trade. We have evidence. We've got letters where the king, many people know, is Mansa Musa, who we have him actually quotes from him where he says he attests to there being Christians in his kingdom. You know what I'm saying? And this going back to like the 1300s or so. The transatlantic slave trade doesn't really pop off until like your early 1500s, and late 1400s at the most. And so you have Christianity being attested to in West Africa prior to the transatlantic slave trade. And so there is no point in Christian history where Africans have not been present in playing significant roles. And so when people talk about Christianity being the white man's religion, what you're asking me to do is just erase and negate and whitewash 2,000 years of our history and just throw that out the window. You know what I'm saying? Which is ridiculous. That actually goes counter to, the claim that, we should be uplifting upholding our dignity. And even when we get here in America, man, I mean, it's not even arguable that there is no worldview that has been more instrumental in the freeing of African enslaved persons and moving on from Jim Crow and so forth than the biblical worldview. Like, it's not even arguable. I mean, so many freedom fighters, Frederick Douglass, J.W. Le Guin, Marcus Garvey, you know what I'm saying, was a Christian. Martin Delaney. I mean, I could just name after name of freedom fighters who was like in them streets for our people. You know what I mean? Who opposed slavery, Jim Crow, and so forth on the basis of their Christian convictions. Ida B. Wells. You know what I'm saying? I can name several others. So this idea that Christianity is the white man's religion, again, what you're telling me is when you make that statement is that you just haven't done your homework from a historical standpoint. And there's philosophical arguments we get into as well, but I think the history is so rich in terms of our involvement in Christianity. Right. I mean, I think we actually do ourselves a disservice. We do African people a disservice when we make silly claims like that, to be honest.
And so to all my viewers right now,
yeah,
now you see why he's on. I've got him on the show.
Right.
Like the right. brother knows what it is that he's talking about. He's done the research, and so yeah, man. So once again, for those of you that are just tuning in, it's a Mind Your Business podcast powered by Hanging with the Harrisons, and tonight we got my man Adam Coleman on. He is an urban apologist.
Yes, sir.
And an apologist is he ain't up here apologizing for anything.
right.
What he is he's a defender of the faith. He almost sounds like a superhero. It's almost like an X-Men or something. One of the X-Men.
Right.
The defender of the faith. I've had the opportunity to witness some videos, hear some of the conversations, and just see some of the dialogue back and forth. It was one that you sent me, man. And I forgot my brother's name. I'm not even going. I ain't going. But it was hilarious to see the reaction from him.
Yeah.
Once the information was being brought forth.
Right.
I mean, it was. I mean, to the point. I think I watched the entire. And I think there was.
You watched the whole video?
And I think I watched and we talking about almost 2 hours.
Oh, easy. Yeah. Easily.
I was up late. Oh man. And but
that was wild. Wild. Yeah.
But once again, we're having a conversation with a true influencer. Like, and that's what we do. We have conversations with business owners, creatives, entrepreneurs, and influencers. Yeah. And what you're doing, man, is commendable.
I appreciate it, man.
You do it with precision and with excellence, clarity, and professionalism. Like, you're not walking into these spots, having these conversations with these different individuals, and not knowing and not prepared. Like, you're doing your homework.
Yeah, got to. And I think that's part of the reason why, old boy was like really struggling, man. Because you got like, the thing is, for many of them, they're not accustomed to dealing with Christians who are well studied. I'm saying, like, they've been saying stuff about Christianity for years, decades, with no pushback. And so they assume, like, when somebody like myself shows up, then they're just going to be able to railroad me, or I'm just going to quote a bunch of scriptures, but there's nothing wrong with referring to the scriptures. But notice, like, with the stuff that I'm saying, for the most part, I'm just giving you history and philosophy. And so they're not accustomed to that. So when they run into a Christian who's well studied, it's like, oh snap, like that's a problem. I'm saying, like we're supposed to be ignorant. We're supposed to be dumb
Right.
Bible thumpers. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think it throws them off, man.
Yeah, and even him and other cats that I've heard and I've listened to, like, they will even quote scriptures from the Bible
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
and try to use them, to kind of throw your argument off, or they'll pick and choose here and there.
yeah.
But just once again, for someone that knows their homework, that's not afraid to get in there and do it, and like I said, a defender of the faith, Mr. Superhero himself. I don't know which X-Man you want to be. We got to come up.
I don't know, man. Yeah,
Listen,
I have no idea.
we're gonna come up with a name for you. I'm surprised we haven't come up with one yet.
Well, actually, my favorite character back in the day was Bishop. Because he was black and had the dreads. You know what I mean? So back in the day, it was my favorite X Factor character.
That might be it. I'm gonna have to talk to Brick, man. We might have to see what we can come up with, man. But I do, man. I appreciate what you're doing. I really do, because once again,
thank you, man. I appreciate it.
You're doing it, man. You're doing it with excellence. You're going in there, and you're having these. We always talk about the hard conversations.
Yeah, man.
Bro, you having these hard conversations, even if it's in debate mode. But then on top of that, I've seen the influence that you've had on younger Christians, to the point where you get them where they want to start studying and reading and doing the research.
Facts, yeah, right.
Look, I remember back in the day, man, you was doing stuff at the at the donut shop.
Yeah, man. Yep, the No Ceilings, man. Shout out to the No Ceilings crew. That was fun, man. And you know what? I love stuff like that, man, because for me, if it's just giving information, that's cool, but I also want to give inspiration. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying like I'm some, super genius or something like that. I mean, that's why I call myself the hometown hero. I'm saying everybody can be that. Everybody can just take the time to learn what it is that you believe and why you believe it, and study so that you can be able to articulate it to others, man. I think that's something that, needs to be the norm in the church, because the reality is I'm not one to bang on the church. I mean, I recognize there are definitely some criticisms that can be, levied against certain churches. But one thing I will say is that I think that we have done the intellectual heritage of Christianity a disservice, and we really need to reclaim it, man. You know what I'm saying? We really need to reclaim the arguments and evidence that we have at our disposal, so that we can help to make sense of and to illustrate to others why Christianity makes sense. Because right now people still feel like, oh, they just doing it because it's a feel good religion. You know what I'm saying? But just because it feels good, they just like to shout on Sunday or something like that. And to an extent, we need to stop giving people that impression. You know what I'm saying, we need to make sure that we are doing our due diligence, so we can have those barbershop conversations with confidence and really get out here and make a difference, man.
Yeah, well, you doing it, man. You're definitely doing it.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate
it. I would say that continue to do it. It's interesting, and you have followers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when I say you have followers, some followers for good, and some are just ready to blast you every chance they get.
Right.
I'm reading some of the comments that I've received, and now understand, I've never had these type of comments before.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You know what I mean? I
can't see them, but I'm sure it's some static. Okay.
Yeah, I've never had these type of comments before.
But I'm about to take a look now. I'm tempted now.
We'll post one up.
Okay.
Let me see. Black Dream, loving one another in every TRU-ID stream. You always run from conversations in the comment section though, and hit you with the rolly eyes emoji.
You said I run from conversations. Well, here's the thing though. I mean, the reality is, just to kind of take peel back the the veil for a second. If I'm doing a live stream, then I probably already have notes on what it is that I want to cover.
Right.
And so if I stop with every single comment, I mean, I might have 30, 40, 70 people watching. And if I stop for every comment or every question, then I'll never get to the content I was trying to get to. And actually, that's counterproductive for people who actually watch my channel. Like, nobody wants to see me start a conversation and never finish it.
Right.
So some of it is just logistics. I mean,
Yeah.
and so if I get to it at the end, and the reality is, if it takes me like an hour and some change to get through the information that I have, I don't want to make 5-hour videos because
Right.
nobody will ever watch it. And now I'm not, being productive. So it's nothing personal. It's not. I'm not intimidated whatsoever by questions that come up in the chat. It actually, if the person is watching, what the notice is, I actually do go back and I make a note of what I see in the live chat, and sometimes that'll generate a whole another conversation that I'll do another live on.
Right.
So, hey, keep watching, keep asking, and maybe I'll be able to get to your
Yeah.
questions. You know what I'm saying?
People have to understand as well that a lot of these things we're doing, you know,
Yeah.
I don't have a producer. You know what I
No,
mean?
right.
Like we're doing this all at the same time.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so I had another one here. I mean,
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
listen, it's loving one another. And I don't know if it's a lady or a man, but they posted a very, very extensive, I think about 3 or 4, and it was long. I respect that you want to save people even if deluded. However, the sickness in this cult is the belief that those who don't believe deserve endless suffering in your view. I, 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 I don't
Got
know.
you. Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're going to be detailed about it, if it speaks theologically, he's talking about what theologians would call eternal conscious torment. I'm saying the traditional view that hell is
Mm-hmm.
something that lasts forever or something like that. Now, I want to say that first of all, actually, I don't know how much theology you study, but actually, not all Christians affirm that. Some Christians would affirm what's called annihilationism. I don't subscribe to that view. Some would affirm, a literal hell, but not like a fire burning type of thing. I mean, so there's different views on hell, and it seems like he's got the traditional view in mind. So I'll just kind of go there. But the fact of the matter is, um, nobody goes to hell because they didn't follow some sort of list of do's and don'ts. That's not why you go to hell. You know what I'm saying, or that's not why you're cut off from God eternally. At the end of the day, everything boils down to one question. It's a question of relationship. And in this life, you have the opportunity to have a relationship, an eternal relationship with God. That's ultimately what it boils down to. Now, you can either accept or reject that relationship. If you reject that relationship, then God honors your choice and you won't have it. That's just really what it is. You know what I'm saying? But everybody has that choice. And so it's not like you're not good enough. Like nobody's good enough. That's the whole point of the gospel. That's literally the whole point of the gospel. Nobody's good enough to make it in on their own merit. The question is, are you going to accept or reject this relationship with God? And so I believe now this gets into a little bit of the weeds, but I'll just go here anyway. If I were to say to you that I created a robot that loves me, I created a robot and I programmed it to love me, I think you would, it's pretty easy to see that that's not real love. You know what I'm saying? It may have some interaction with me, it may respond to me, but it doesn't really love me. It's in the deepest sense of what we understand love to be. Why? Because love requires some element of the will. You know what I'm saying? Love requires some element of choosing to love somebody. You know what I mean? When you get married to somebody, hopefully it was of your choosing. I'm saying that's real love. Anyway, I believe that God wants a relationship with real love. I'm saying I think God is love, obviously, as the scriptures say. And what he requires of us is real love. And real love is not forced. I'm saying it's not for in some robotic sense. And so therefore, I think he gives us the capacity to either will or to not to will to be in a relationship with him. And I think that he's given us the capacity, and he holds us to it in terms of how we choose to use that capacity. If you choose to reject God, then it's okay. Your will be done. It's really that simple, But there's a lot of things we get into the weed on. If he wants me to, I'll do a whole show on it. If that's what he wants. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Well, bro, like I said, man, there's something about you and what you believe and what you say that
Mm-hmm.
had these comments jumping, man. I tell you, man, they
Yeah.
on it, man.
Oh, we can do. Hey, we can do more. I'm good. I can do
Let
this
me
all
see
day.
what else. What else we got? Here we go.
This is what we do.
Not everyone who's a Christian believes in ECT. You have annihilationism
Correct.
and Christian
Correct.
universalism. And then he goes on to say, I say he, I could be off.
Right.
To be clear, Christian universalists believe in a hell, just not an eternal tormenting one, more like a purgatorial hell in some sense.
I mean, there's different types of Christian universalists. Now, I think that Christian universalism, at the end of the day, for me, it's all about truth. I don't think that you can actually engage the biblical text with intellectual honesty and come to the conclusion that Christian universalism is true. So, and that's just what it is. And because the reality is, um, well, I just put it that, when it comes to, ECT versus Christian universalism, at the end of the day, whichever way you go, I want to see how you got there. It's like doing math back in the day. It's not, you don't want to just write down the right answer. I want to see
Right.
your work. And I think that when you show your work, meaning you're going through the biblical text and giving me reasons why you're a universalist, I don't think that they can show their work. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. Listen, bro. All right, look, man. So this is normally how we close out the show. When we have guests on,
Okay.
we ask them about their highs and their lows. And so for you, with all that you're doing, urban apologetics and things of that nature, let's talk highs and lows. And it can go in either or.
Okay.
What's your
Gotcha.
highest high as far as doing this? And what's your lowest low?
Got you. Honestly, man, the highest high is, it just may sound weird. You know what I'm saying? Admittedly, it may sound like weird or nerdy. I don't know. But when I'm teaching, say, especially if I'm in public, right? Sometimes you can look in somebody's eyes and see that light bulb moment. You know what I'm saying? You can look at them and see like, oh snap, like I got it. That's my high right there. You know what I'm saying? Like back in the day when I was rapping, the high might be something like, you're in that mode where it feels like the whole crowd is with you and you're rocking the stage. Like that's your high there. For me now, it's more about that teaching moment where I can look at the person and be like, I can really see it in them. Like, oh, I got it. I love that because for me, it's like now it's not about me. First of all, it's about passing information to somebody else so that their life and well-being is enriched and they're able to do that for somebody else. Now they can pass it on once they got it. So I love that. As far as the lows, to be honest with you, man, I'm gonna just be transparent. I think like one of the lows for me, or probably the lowest of the lows, is I think that much of the church is asleep. I think that much of the church is they don't recognize that we have to move on from just going to church as usual. You know what I'm saying? We can't be checking our brains at the door. The reality is the time of pastor said is over. I'm saying, and it really pains me to see, unfortunately, and I get that pushback, kind of like what you were talking about earlier. It pains me to see Christians, pastors, leaders of whatever sort, not valuing the intellectual heritage of Christianity. I'm saying because this is not just going to church, reading a couple of verses and going home. This is a lifestyle. I do believe that, and actually now I take that back. So that's one of the lows. The other low is when people just flat out aren't living the biblical worldview, you know what I'm saying, and claim to be Christians. Because at the end of the day, like, this is what I do. I study philosophy. I do it all the time. Like, I love studying Christian philosophy. I love studying the history and all that kind of stuff. But if I'm not living it, then to me, it's all for nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could do more damage not living this thing out than giving a bad answer to a question. Like, say if somebody, is putting something in the chat and I just give a wrong answer. I mean, yeah, they might be disappointed in me. They're like, oh, I got you or whatever. But it cuts deeper if I'm talking about all this Christian stuff and then somebody catch me out and in the community doing something that's unbecoming of a Christian. And so it really pains me to see that, man. And so one thing I encourage people to do is if you're going to be a Christian apologist or minister of any sort, like, take the time, whether it be getting, just alone to get with the scriptures and kind of, develop in some areas, or it might be going to therapy for, in some situations. Like, get the time to get healed in certain areas before you build a public platform, because the last thing you want to do is misrepresent the gospel and do more harm than good, man.
Yeah, brother. That's
Yeah.
that's good, man. That's
Yeah,
that's
man.
good right there, bro. That's some
Yeah.
information that trust and believe. We all could use that.
Yeah,
Because
man.
even myself, man, because I say a lot of times, God doesn't need help with looking bad.
Mm-hmm.
He don't need no help with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we've got to
Right.
try to do all that we can do. Because
Mm-hmm.
come on, like he don't need no help, man. Like,
It don't, man. Yeah. Yeah.
so,
And
but look,
like I
man,
said,
I appreciate you. I appreciate you for taking the
hey,
time to
man.
come hang out.
Yes, sir.
We'll figure this piece out again, man. We had to do this again, man.
Of course.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed even just some of the dialogue and the questions from some of the people, questions or even the comments.
Okay, and, I'm about to go back and look. Yeah,
yeah. Even some of the comments that and definitely, man, you get a chance to that way you can address it. If people want to get in touch with you, I'll do a link on my page as well. But if they want to get in touch with you, shoot out the podcast information and how they can reach you.
No doubt. Yeah, real easy, man. So for the podcast, it's TRU-ID podcast.com. That's TRU-ID podcast.com. For the YouTube page, which is where I'm spending most of my time, is TRU-ID apologetics.com. So that's YouTube. I always get the backslash and forward slash wrong, but I'll just say backslash. You know what I'm saying? TRU-ID apologetics, TRU-ID apologetics. And then, people can hit me up, man. If they have questions, TRUID, the number 7 at gmail.com, man. Definitely hit me up on Gmail. I'm also on Twitter, Twitter/ScottLane7. I'm on Facebook. It's Adam Coleman. Instagram. I'm the worst at Instagram, so I don't even know what my Instagram is. But, if you type in TRU-ID, you'll probably find me on Instagram as well, man. So definitely reach out, man.
And that's what's up, man. So I appreciate you, man. And we'll figure out how we can do this again. To get you back on, man.
Oh, and I apologize, man. Also, man, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that I did contribute to this book right here. This is Urban Apologetics: Restoring Black Dignity with the Gospel. I wrote chapter 11 and that on Black atheism. This is edited by Eric Mason, so definitely go ahead and get this. It's wherever books are sold. It's on Amazon.
So say that one more time. You wrote chapter 11 on what?
On Black atheism. So atheism in the African American context. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's an issue that a lot of people don't recognize as being something in our community, but nevertheless, it's on the rise, man. So I wanted to give a response to some of the objections to Christianity coming from atheists in the African American context.
And I appreciate it, man, because I did finally get my book.
Oh, right, like years after, right?
Yeah, I did finally get it, man. So
you finally got it, right?
I appreciate it, man. I just had to throw that out there, bro.
I had to let it marinate before I sent it to you. You know what I mean? I had to let it.
Oh man, but I do, man. Appreciate you taking the time, man, and coming, hanging out with us. Man. Tell the family I said hello, and but
absolutely, likewise, brother.
I do really appreciate it, man. Hold on for me just a minute. I don't want to just hang up on you just like that. So once again, people, it's the Mind Your Business podcast. That was my man, Adam Coleman. We'll send up the link on how you can get in touch with him, how you can reach him, find out more about his podcast and the whole Urban Apologetics Collective. They're doing some very great things in our communities. They're doing some work that needs to be done that a lot of people have been afraid to do. And so that was also one of the other reasons why I wanted to get him on the show. So that you can kind of understand what an apologist is, a defender of the faith. He's an urban apologist, Christian apologist. And so, shout out to everybody that's tuned in. We do this every Monday. It's the Mind Your Business podcast. And for those that missed it, we will do the replay on Wednesday on our YouTube page. But once again, I appreciate everybody. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. It's the Mind Your Business podcast, powered by Hanging with the Harrisons. And we will talk to you guys really, really soon.